Hello and welcome back to another one of the video features of the Immersive Worlds Handbook. Today I am at the Legends of Sparks Marina, which is in Sparks, Nevada. And I want to use this feature to focus on the idea of referencing local lore, local history, local people, local geography, local events. So the theme here really is the local, and I use this as a reference point because it's maybe one of the great ways to connect with your guest who presumably, at least in small part or maybe a big part, is represented by folks who live locally or by folks who are visiting the area in another part because of the excitement of what the area offers to them. So let's take a look at a few of the features here at Sparks, Legends of Sparks Marina. So I'm coming up on here on one of the features that I think is unique. This I talk about it in one of my social media features. I don't know if you call this metonymy or synecdoche, but it's using fish here, obviously. You could see the smaller fish to make up the larger fish. And I think this is a pretty stunning sculptural effort to connect guests with local species and also with nature. And as I pan over here, this is really one of the central spaces, and you can see what they have represented is all of the state animals, birds, flora, fauna, the desert tortoise, the sagebrush, which is the state flower, the state song, represented here, not playing yet, bighorn sheep, the state animal. And, the other thing I think is interesting about Legends and how they've done the design elements is they really focused on variety. There isn't one design style that you might see, say, at a Cabela's. Coming in here, we have a more modern aesthetic, also a sense of the outdoors. You can see some of the design here for people to mingle. It's a pretty cold day today, so hardly anyone is out, which is good for my filming purposes. And right here, local hero, Mark Twain, of course. And so what they've done here quite effectively is to really use a sense of the local, whether it's local figures, the natural environment, animals, the flora, the fauna. So they've done an effective job, I believe, in really establishing connections that the guests can remember, and these are often very symbolic connections because they're key figures or key symbols like state animals, state songs, and the like. And here's another shot here. You can see the airplanes. This region is pretty famous for air races, and that's another facet represented. And here's another shot walking through the plaza area. We even have the ichthyosaur, the state fossil. There's a really good park you can visit which features the ichthyosaur. So they've left no stone unturned in terms of representing animals, flora, and fauna of the past and the present. And again, dramatic sculptural representations of Native American leaders associated with the area. And I think a lot of these sculptures, as I mentioned earlier, are quite dramatic and could stand up on their own in any number of museums. And here's a very cool central feature of, we can think of the Pony Express, the horse and rider, and what it represents. And actually, I did notice this last time. You have underneath, quite interestingly enough, the state of Nevada. So it's another really dramatic sculpture. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention is hard to see here. This helps you a bit with the historical reference points. You can see right here we have, I can't even read it myself, so you probably can't see it, Robert Haslam. And what's cool about this is that each of the features here have a plaque and give the guest a little bit of a sense of who's represented or what's represented and how it ties in with local history and lore. So we walk down here, we see a few juxtapositions. Chinese mining represented here on the left as I walk up. So So this is another bit of paying homage to history. They spent a lot of time in this, as you can see, and we get some interesting juxtapositions of, you know, a Chinese miner and guests. And then over here, as I mentioned earlier, more reference to the air races and the history of the local area and its many activities. And so here's another one of those plaques. In this case, it's not talking about an individual, but about progress in the Pony Express. It's a bit of information for the guests to look at. And you know, what's interesting to me about shopping experiences is that they can be quasi, at least, educational, in the sense that you are teaching them something about local history. It's not as in-depth and detailed as you might get, of course, in a museum or even in some theme parks and interpretive spaces. But nonetheless, it is a representation, and I think what's interesting here is you can see that they haven't gone with just pure representational art and sculpture. So this is paying reference to the mining history here in Nevada, and you can see kind of this more abstract representation of mining timbers, and then on the ground you have the many implements and tools that are referenced in mining. And as I'm getting ready to exit Legends at Sparks Marina, I wanted to show you one more sign of how they're connecting the local history to the guest, and this is referencing the many local heroes, Mark Twain, DeSoto, Lee, and John McKay, and also not referenced here, but in another section of the mall, there is a tribute to George Ferris, who's important to me because of his history with the Ferris wheel, which I've also featured in the Shields video I've done for the Immersive Worlds Handbook. So as we leave Legends of Sparks Marina, let's not forget the value of focusing on local history, on activities, on figures, on symbols, on the flora and the fauna that make a place representative to a guest, and that allow the guest to really experience all that this place means today, what it's meant in the past, and what the place will mean for them in the future.